with the episode of We Will Be Heard. And we have as our guest Miss Sheena Smith. She is an advocate, a community advocate who is fighting on behalf of what is going on right now in the city of Baltimore, especially with our state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby. And right now I'm going to ask if Miss Sheena Smith can introduce herself to us.
Good evening, everyone. I am Sheena Smith, a citizen of Baltimore, Maryland, advocating on behalf of support for our former state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, for individuals to come down to her jury trial, which is at 6500 Cherrywood Lane in Greenbelt, Maryland, Monday morning, February the 5th at 9:30. It is free parking there, so just come on down and give our sister the support that she deserves.
Now, Sheena, you've been following this for a while since this first started out. Can you tell us a little bit, how did you get connected with our dear sister Marilyn Mosby? How did you get connected with her?
I actually got connected with her through Bill Gooden, which is another community activist, and Sister Sylvia Harris, which is the mother of our former councilman Ken Harris, who was murdered here in Baltimore City. She and I were talking, and we were seeing our former state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, on the news. And our hearts just felt that we needed to be supportive to this sister because she stood up for the citizens of Baltimore at a time where this city would have burned to the ground. And she made some tough decisions, some that many did not agree with, but she got a lot of support for the decision that she made regarding the murder of Freddie Gray, which our eyes showed us what was happening to this young man, but we understand that the judge turned down the sound, so we could not hear what our eyes were seeing. So we're in support. We know it's a jury trial. We're just going down to show continued support. We've been there for 2 weeks, and closing arguments will begin on Monday. So we would like to give her a very, very strong support on that day.
Let's be clear about it. What we've been seeing, what has happened here, many of us believe, including myself, that this sister was targeted because of the stand she took during the Freddie Gray, charging those officers, and also with her progressive views on how to reduce crime in Baltimore City. And we believe that she was the object of just clearly object of biasness by the federal government in this instance. And you've been in the trial, you've been in the courtroom, you've seen what has happened. Could you give us a take on what you think, in your opinion, how has this trial been biased against her?
Well, number one, 739 individuals actually withdrew their funds at a very difficult time for everybody in this country. So they qualified because we were in COVID, and the stipulation was that it didn't say whether you had a hardship of $1 or more, but if you was experiencing a hardship, you could withdraw your funds from your retirement funding and utilize it to stabilize yourself and to prevent, in my opinion, prevent things from occurring moving forward. So that's what I believe she did. And she was targeted because no one else, it was a lawyer in the courtroom that came to us and said, this is typically an offense that they give you a slap on the wrist. It's usually handled civilly. They give you an opportunity to either modify the paperwork or be fined. So an attorney came to us and told us that. So clearly 739 other individuals, that's clear right there that she's being targeted. Yeah.
And what I find really remarkable about this whole incident is that out of that 739 people, she is the only person, the only, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to understand the significance of that, because there seems to be a lack of fairness in this case. And whenever there's a lack of fairness in this case, it is a sign that something is terribly wrong. Something is wrong. And if you remember, even during the summertime, how she was targeted not only by the federal government, but by members of the police department. This lady's life has been threatened.
Yes.
She's had to move. Could you share a little bit about how her life has been impacted?
From what I've understood is that she received death threats. And as any mother would do, when you're in a situation like that, she had an opportunity to get her children from out of a traumatic situation of seeing their mother going through the trauma of receiving death threats. Okay, so any mother would have moved, or even if it was a temporary move, just to stabilize the children, because we understand that trauma for children, adults can kind of sometimes take it, but children, it can be a lifelong event for them. So I commend this sister for making the decisions that she made, because as she stated, this is the second trial is what they have her on trial for now about the mortgage and everything. What she stated is that she saw an opportunity to purchase this home, and she only had to live in it for 6 months, according to the realtor. That was his testimony. And the other 6 months, she could rent it out, and that way it would pay for itself. And then being down there, she was presented with an opportunity to purchase a second home, which made sense because now she can also only had to stay in that for 1 day. So it was nothing illegal about that business endeavor. And COVID affected travel. So many knew that she was starting a business to help women that deal with trauma and things like that. So this would have been a place where they could come and do a retreat. And so the business was affected during COVID, which many don't understand. Travel was affected. So therefore her business was affected. So she qualified to do everything that she did. And the news isn't going to give you all of that information. And this is why we want individuals to come down to the court so that you can hear for yourself and not get things in sound bites and secondhandedly, you know?
And if you've been following the trial, even on television, City Councilman Nick Mosby even came and admitted that a lot of the responsibility he shouldered, that he was not necessarily candid about the bills that needed to be paid, or there's information that he did not have the opportunity. I don't know if he didn't have the opportunity, but his wife did not receive the information, and therefore she was at a loss of what was really going on. And so here's the sister, like most of our African American women, who have to pick up the slack and to make things right. And that's all she was trying to do, make things right.
That's what
And
she
if you
did.
think,
Yeah,
go ahead, Sheena.
in my opinion, that's exactly what the sister did, because people have problems in their relationship. So I'm not going to get in who and all. I don't get into husband and wife, because people have problems. And when you took those vows, you said for better, for worse, for rich or poor. So I clearly understand that when he, for whatever reason, made the decision to, in his mind, he was protecting her because he understood the stress that she was already under. He didn't want to add to it, hoping that he would be able to fix it. But because these investigations, they were always 2 steps ahead of them, investigating them, trying to find something. So in my opinion, once they found out about the lien, it went public. And that's how she began to find out. And naturally, any sister is going to call her husband or find a way to communicate with him, and vice versa, what is going on. And so once she found out what occurred, then yeah, she, as any woman would, we all have situations where we have to fix financially, and you just fix it and move on. It is no reason to hold her hostage or criminally charged for a situation that occurred in their marriage. And it happens in many relationships. So you fix it, you sit down and say, how do we prevent this from happening again? Which is why I believe she went into the Florida business to establish an LLC, so that, because when you make a lot of money, people think, oh, you make all this money, but you are in this tax bracket, you got to create a tax shelter. As we all see now, that Donald Trump and those individuals that are in business at his level, they don't get charged tax-wise like that, because they have tax shelters. It protects them, you see. And so I believe that she looked at her children and her marriage, and she said, we got to fix it. And so that's basically
Exactly.
what I believe this family did. And she didn't steal from her budget. He didn't steal from his budget, from the citizens of Baltimore. This is their personal money. I want to be clear on that. This is their
Exactly.
personal problems. As all of us have situations in our households that we're not proud of. We don't want our stuff smeared across the camera because clearly, in my opinion, they're trying to depict that, oh, you all can't handle this or that. But they were young. They learned as they went along, and they fixed it. They fixed it. So,
You know,
and mhm.
I'm sorry. Don't. I'm sorry. Finish your thought.
No, that's pretty much what I wanted to end on.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because one of the things that I've been troubled about is the lack of support from community. And when I say lack of support, all of us know that Marilyn Mosby made herself available to visit churches. Uh,
Mhm.
I have not seen clergy. I
Mhm.
mean, the clergy who was once very supportive, I don't see them supporting her. Can you speak to a little bit about uh, what does that what does that seem like to you? What is it? What's going
Well,
on here?
the clergy has to be able to articulate why they are not saying, because just as Sylvia Harris and myself saw this sister on the news, we found a way to reach out to her because
Yes,
oftentimes when you are overwhelmed, you don't know who to trust, what to trust, where to go to. She's trying to deal with her attorneys and prepare her case for this court that she has to go into. So oftentimes, if we just show up, because it is a trial, so our mere presence says a lot to this sister. We don't have to be down there bombarding her, but she's very personable. She does engage with us, and we really really like that because many people can be standoffish, but she's not that way. And
not at all.
I really respect her a lot. Even going through this, So the clergy has to make the decision that just as they make the decision to send buses wherever they have to send them, this is Black history. This is a Black woman that we know have 2 young children, and we clearly know she received death threats. She exonerated 13 African American men who
My.
had been wrongfully convicted. They had
Wow.
been wrongfully convicted. Okay. And so clearly that's another attack that we believe is happening because she did that. And that should be a bust in itself. 13, a picture of those 13 men, we were wrongfully convicted, and Marilyn Mosby stood up for us. Okay.
Yes,
And so it's sad that they are depicting our leadership in the faith-based community as not being supportive. It is very sad that many citizens are jumping the gun and not understanding that this was her money. That
absolutely.
739 people took their own money to fix their own problems, as they should, as they should. Instead of, when you don't understand financing, sometimes I don't care if you are an attorney, I don't care, people tell you if you have a heart issue, you're going to go to an expert, a
Right.
cardiologist. So once she figured out that they were having problems, they went to those professional people to fix their problems, and they did it. They got it in order, so
Absolutely.
clearly, I mean, these folks went all the way back to 2014 digging. And one lady was telling me that there was a brother who wanted to help organize, but he was threatened not to come forward. So many
Wow.
are afraid. It's not that everybody don't want to come. There are so many people are afraid. And even in Dr. King and Malcolm X days, individuals were afraid. Individuals that look like you and I betrayed them. So this
My.
is not new to our community. Okay. But we must stand with us. Those of us who feel that we can stand with this sister, we can't worry about who's not there. We've got to take the Lord with us, and we've got to take our spirit with us and know that on this issue, this sister has done nothing wrong. It was her money. And although they say that, because legal minds, they said that, oh, it wasn't your money, blah, blah, blah. It was her money to have access to, because if she didn't
Right.
have access to it, they would not have allowed her to withdraw it. They would have said to her, this is not your money. So she had access,
Right.
the mandate, her COVID. You see?
I want to go back a little bit and play a clip that really, for me at least, it really kick-started this whole um, this whole piece of targeting Merlin Mosby. Listen to this clip here.
Yeah. Okay.
Good morning. First and
I don't know.
foremost,
Can you hear that?
I need to express
Yes.
publicly my deepest sympathies for the family of the loved ones of Mr. Freddie Gray. I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Gray's family to discuss some of the details of the case and the procedural steps going forward. I assured his family that no one is above the law and that I would pursue justice on their behalf. To the thousands of city residents, community organizers, faith leaders, and political leaders that chose to march peacefully throughout Baltimore, I commend your courage to stand for justice. I also commend the brave men and women, both in uniform and out, who have stepped up Monday night to protect our communities from those who wish to destroy it. As the city's chief prosecutor, I've been sworn to uphold justice and to treat every individual within the jurisdiction of Baltimore City equally and fairly under the law. I take this oath seriously, and I want the public to know that my administration is committed to creating a fair and equitable justice system for all, no matter what your occupation, your age, your race, your color, or your creed. It is my job to examine and investigate the evidence of each case and apply those facts to the elements of a crime in order to make a determination as to whether individuals should be prosecuted. This is a tremendous responsibility, but one that I sought and accepted when the citizens of Baltimore City elected me as a state's attorney. And it's precisely what I did in the case of Freddie Gray. Once alerted about this incident, on April 13th, investigators from my police integrity unit were deployed to investigate the circumstances surrounding Mr. Gray's apprehension. Over the course of our independent investigation in the untimely death of Mr. Gray, my team worked around the clock, 12 and 14-hour days, to canvass and interview dozens of witnesses, view numerous hours of video footage, repeatedly reviewed and listened to hours of police videotape statements, surveyed the route, reviewed voluminous medical records, and we leveraged the information made available to us by the police department, the community, and the family of Mr. Gray. The findings of our comprehensive, thorough, and independent investigation, coupled with the
I'm gonna stop right there. And the reason why I'm stopping is because this is the time when she was targeted. At this time, the police department became upset, the federal government became upset because she made a decision to hold those police officers accountable.
The issue is this: we around the globe saw Freddie Gray being taken into a wagon in excruciating pain. He ends up deceased after being in the custody of some officers, okay? This was one of the most horrific crimes that I've ever witnessed myself in Baltimore City, because what we saw, the judge turned down the sound so we could not hear what we saw. I want people to understand. People were trying to say, well, she ain't getting no conviction with her, because what we understand, just as those 13 men were wrongfully convicted, there was evidence that was suppressed. And if you can suppress evidence, you can overturn. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. If you can suppress the evidence, then guess what? You're not getting a guilty plea. But it does not negate the fact that Freddie Gray is in his grave. His family has to go to a tombstone. Okay. And I don't care who he was. He was a human being.
Yes.
Because none of us are perfect.
Yes.
So once they saw that she stood up for justice, yes, they targeted her. We know that it was actually very clear, publicly clear, the FOP was telling her that they were going to get her. It's not nothing that people is making up. It's not all police
Absolutely.
officers, because we have good officers. I live in a community, my neighbors are police officers, okay? But on this issue, and we have to take case by case, as she does, I believe, based on her budget. But on this issue, this city would have burned to the ground because many of those young people, they knew those corrupt officers.
Absolutely.
So they knew the truth because they're out there in that game, a lot of them. So they know who's who. She had to make that decision, and it was a tough one. It was very difficult because she knew that she was going to get backlash. She's
Absolutely.
she's a brilliant woman, okay? But I believe when she took that oath to serve in that office, the citizens of Baltimore, I really believe she took it to heart.
Absolutely. And there was another instance, is another clip. I know you have very limited time because I know you have to be at work tomorrow, and I don't want to keep you on here long, but I would like to share another clip.
That's fine. That's fine.
This is another clip I would like to share. This clip discusses the gun trace task force.
Ooh, Jesus.
Marilyn
The
Mosby
state's attorney is addressing police
really
corruption.
reacted to that.
The state's attorney is
I'll play
addressing
that. Can you
police
hear it?
corruption. Her office has the authority to do this based on state law that went into effect 3 days ago.
The Baltimore Police.
City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby considers 18 Baltimore police officers corrupt, and her office is now in the process of vacating 790 convictions in cases they were involved in. This list includes the 8 convicted in the gun trace task force scandal. 2 have been convicted in a separate federal case, 6 are implicated in GTTF testimony, and 2 are related to other cases. 7 remain unidentified. This brings the total of distrusted officers to 25. The Maryland Public Defender's Office is not involved in the process, but supports the decision.
And we certainly support her efforts and would help them in any way that we can.
According to the state's attorney's office, 3 of the officers still work for the city police department. They are Detective Robert Henkard, Sergeant Kenneth Ivory, and Sergeant Jason Giordano. According to the city state's attorney's office, 10 of the officers resigned. 1 retired, another fired. 1 other officer, Detective Sean Suter, who is on the list, was shot to death November 15, 2017, in a West Baltimore vacant lot. The circumstances regarding his death remain under investigation. GTTF member Mamadou Gondo implicated him in stealing money on the job. Prosecutors started filing papers this week, asking the courts to throw out the cases believed to be compromised. Meanwhile, Baltimore City Hall remains concerned that the city will face lawsuits from defendants in those cases. Mayor Jack Young told the WBAL Radio C4 program the city should not be held liable.
When police officers work outside of the scope of their jobs, they should be the ones liable for whatever suit is coming their way. I don't think that the citizens of Baltimore should be paying for things that officers are going outside of the scope of their jobs. I don't think we should pay for it.
According to the state's attorney's office, prosecutors will be filing 200 cases a week through the month of October. Reporting live from the Mitchell Courthouse downtown, David Collins, WBAL TV 11 News.
Yeah, I was actually glued to the television when that occurred. And then following that, the documentary We Own This City came out because Sergeant Jenkins, basically, he was the ringleader. Okay. And I often tell people, I would say before that even came out, that this has to be bigger than the average boy on the corner, because it's just too inflated. First of all, over 300 murders, mass arrests, and what I learned with this particular situation, because I had a nephew who was doing behavior that I did not agree with. And he called me and told me that the police had beaten him up and that they were open up their jacket, suggesting that they was going to plant a gun on him because I asked him, why did you run from the police? He said, man, they opened their jacket and one of them, the detective, had a gun that he was going to plant on him. And I was angry initially at him because I thought he was lying to me. So when this story broke, I literally had to go to my nephew's grave and say, please forgive me, because I didn't believe him. I really did not. I thought he just was out there doing what he wanted to do. And I mean, like I said, I have neighbors who would think that the police would engage in this type of behavior. And they were the scum of the earth, this particular department, because they are literally going into innocent people's homes, stealing money. One young man, he had just cashed a check for $650 and they pulled him over in a traffic stop and stole his mortgage money from him. And the list went on and on and on, from them stealing from the midget stripper to, it was one guy that was a legitimate businessman who dealt with high-end cars. So he had a lot of cash at home. And I think this what really got them caught, because he made a legitimate complaint and the Department of Justice began investigating them in their traffic stops and things of that nature. So, this is, if we say we really want to fix our city, we would want a prosecutor like Marilyn Mosby, a state's attorney like Marilyn Mosby, because she, although her budget was cut, okay, she did the best she could with what she had to deal with certain crimes, okay? And now when you look at that the police is involved in a lot of this corruption, then we take the fact that our children have been drinking lead poison water, which was exposed by the health commissioner, Peter Bilson, over 20 years ago, which affects your rationality to be able to think in a reasonable manner when you're lead poison. So all of these ingredients going into what is happening in our community, this is why we have what we have. And when this sister stood up to what we call in the activism world, systems, this is what systems do. They put all of their resources. When I looked at the investigations, the resources that was put together to come after this sister for her own money, we could have brought over 100 people their own home, eliminated homelessness. We could have built better schools. This list goes on and on with the resources that they poured in to going after this sister and her family. Her family is destroyed behind this. Her children are traumatized. She has family who raised her. Her grandmother raised her. She's very ill. This is horrible, what is happening in our city, because someone did their job. And if we sit back, we ain't got to go down there acting all crazy and all that, but we need to show up in record numbers that we support this sister, because she made some really, really tough decisions, but they were the right decisions. Because as she said her first off, one of the prosecutors was saying, well, you supervise how many employees? And she gave them the number. And then it was like, well, who is your boss? She said, my boss is the citizens of Baltimore.
My.
Because that's who elected her. And we don't have many politicians that will go in and stand with us in doing what is the right thing to do. Because if we really want to fix this criminal element that is poisoning our city, first it was in pockets of communities. Now we're seeing that it's going everywhere with our youth. And we don't know what to do, because the youth know who the corrupt police officers are. They know, because they're being manipulated because of their age to go and steal cars and to go and hold drugs. This is not something that we don't know is happening. We don't want to deal with it.
Mama.
And we want to be angry at a sister like this who stood up. She made the right decisions on this issue. Do she do everything right? Absolutely not. None of us do. We all fall short of the glory of God, even on our job. Okay. A just man falleth 7 times, right? And how many times they say, okay, that lawyer, she made it, she played it in my head over and over. It seemed like almost every day when that attorney was in the court, she was even baffled. How is this happening? How are they getting away with charging her criminally? And I couldn't answer. I said, I'm not an attorney. And the minds that I believe that could give you that answer, they're not in this courtroom. Checking and balancing this stuff, because we have everything we need. There's no way that that sister should have been in that courtroom with not a representative from almost every law firm in this city, Black and white, Jew and Gentile. Every nationality should be saying, this is wrong.
It's wrong. Absolutely.
It is wrong. And even though you might not like that she made this decision, it turned out however it did, because she was the professional at that time and she assimilated the information as best as she could. And it's not her fault that these individuals made the decisions to be corrupt. Just as she went in her office to do the right thing, and as we see, her and her husband was having some challenges. They could have stole some money, but they
Absolutely.
chose to go and do the right thing. So these officers made the decision to do what they did. Just like we all have family members and friends that make decisions that are not the right decisions. Okay? We don't cover up. We say we love you. We just don't love what you did. And that's how we fix our city. That's how we sustain one another. As the scriptures say, we are brothers and sisters keepers. It doesn't say white brother or black brother, brothers and sisters, okay? This is how we do. We must stand up for right. Our children are watching how we are allowing a woman who is a mother who happens to be Black to be mistreated by our tax-paying dollars with this government. This is our money. I was in court one day and a reporter came in. They put us out, was trying to close the court, and the reporter stood up and said, this is a public court. We are supposed to be able to hear everything. Now the jury can be excused. I learned something that day. That's why I'm thankful that I was able to rearrange my schedule to go. Was it a sacrifice? Absolutely. But listen, this sister is fighting for her freedom for her children. We can go and work extra overtime later in the month, but we need to be with her through this because we know it's wrong. 739 people access their money, but one can't because you think she didn't need it. Jesus, take this wheel.
You are making some very excellent points. And our main goal today, I don't know how many people are looking or listening on Facebook. I don't know how many people are going to go back and see this, but we want to remind everyone that on this Monday at the New Shiloh Baptist Church, right here off of Monroe Street in Baltimore City, a bus is going to be made available to take anyone who wants to go to Greenbelt to be a part of the trial to support Marilyn Mosby. And if you don't want to catch the bus, just go to 6500 Cherrywood Lane, right in Greenbelt, Maryland. And we need as many people to go as we possibly can. I won't be able to go there. I'll be out of town. But I am encouraging members of my church, members of my faith community, my Facebook family and friends to go out and say that we cannot allow this injustice to happen. We call it injustice because whenever you inflict pain on one group or one person and don't do it for everybody else, something is wrong with that. And in this case, this lady has not done anything to the degree that many of our public officials have done to merit this kind of treatment.
It's her own money.
Go ahead, Sheena.
It's her own money. Listen, if it was her budget and she took some money out of her budget, y'all wouldn't be hearing from me. I'll pray for her, but I wouldn't be rearranging my work schedule and all that, sitting down there with this sister. Listen, when you go to college, this is what we teach our children. Go to school, get a good education. Yeah, they incurred student loan debt. Yes, they got married young. Yes, they had some issues in their marriage, but guess what? They fixed it. Okay. And so it shouldn't be a thing where they be prosecuted, or she's being prosecuted for something that she didn't have any knowledge of. Her ex-husband, then her husband, literally testified that he kept the truth from her because he was afraid of losing her. And
Sheena,
he didn't want to upset her.
Sheena, when you talk about didn't have any knowledge of, some people may not know exactly what we're talking about.
Well,
City Council President Nick Mosby said that she didn't have any knowledge of what?
but basically what he was saying, this is from what I understood from the testimony, is that before they got married, he owned the house, so it was in his name. So clearly when they incurred the tax debt, Nick set up an installment plan, and Marilyn believed that he was current on the plan. He had defaulted on the plan, and because the house was in Nick's name, the mail that the lien came to the house, it came in Nick's name. And because of all of the scrutiny and the investigation and the pressure that she was under, she basically was at work long hours, and Nick was handling that piece. Okay. So as a result of that, he hid it from her, trying to protect her, but also afraid that if she knew, that he would probably lose her, because this was something clearly that the media got a hold of and misused it, so things happen, like I said, and it is what it is. And it wasn't like, she said pretty much there were some words that she wanted to say to him that she couldn't say publicly, but
we know how
we knew she still loved her husband, but the sister gonna bring it. And it doesn't mean we don't love you. We just don't love what you just did.
Right.
Because it put the family in a situation where when evilness want to take hold of that, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. And so it clearly she had no knowledge of it. And so, people do this all the time in relationships. Some people, they just take care of this and that one take care of that. That's not the issue in my point, because they were married. They work out what works out for them. To me, that's not our place as citizens to dig into their personal relationship and what happens in their household. Now, if their budget is missing something, as we are seeing with this police department, they're saying $66 million is unaccounted for. They don't even know how they came to that in overtime. Whole different scenario.
Exactly.
So that's taxpayers' dollars. Okay. They went to work. She went to work for this money. And many of us know, when you work and your company has something where you can put something aside for retirement, there comes a point where if you have a certain situation, you can access those funds via hardship, loan, etc.
A lot of people just get everything. They're just not, they just don't know. They're in the dark. They're in the blind.
Right.
And
mhm.
Go ahead, Sheena.
I'll let you finish. Mm-hmm.
I want to share with you a timeline so that you can get an idea. On March the 19th,
as quickly as
prosecutors began to investigate. I don't know why they began to investigate.
For months, we've been hearing from residents frustrated with
it's just
the
like it just chose them out of the air. It didn't make any sense.
Cases being stolen by kids.
April the 9th, she made it clear, I have nothing to hide. January 13, 2022, she's now indicted on perjury and false mortgage application charges,
have been stolen so far this year,
she has refuted over and over and over again.
Reported just over
and if you look at this timeline,
auto thefts,
I want you to know, if you just go back to the very beginning of this timeline,
that is a more than
I want to know, how did they even want to even look at her on something that was so insignificant? What drew their attention to Marilyn Mosby? And I submit to you that the only reason they focused on Marilyn Mosby is because they had an axe to grind.
Yeah, well, many people understand that not only did they just begin that, they sent people in to work into her office to try and find something on Marilyn Mosby. Marilyn was clean.
Yes.
Okay. She was clean because Marilyn understood that they were coming.
Oh yeah.
So she wasn't going to put herself in a position for them to get her. So that's why I believe Nick's testimony when he said he misled his wife. He did not tell her everything for whatever his reasoning was. I believe it because when you look at one of the press conferences, he clearly tells the press conference people that the taxes is paid.
Ah.
And it wasn't, because he knew Merlin would have saw that clip and be like, what do you mean you ain't paid? You told me you paid it. You know, the sister girl, the head would start bopping and everything. What you done did, all that would have went down.
Our sisters don't
I'm
play.
sure it did.
Our sisters don't play.
She's not supposed to, because in the position that she's in, she cannot afford mishaps like that. Okay, but it happened, and that's still their relationship, their problems. That's their business. Okay.
Well,
so
it is what it is. One thing we want you to
is.
know, again, if you want to go out to Greenbelt, Maryland, to support our dear sister Marilyn Mosby, meeting at New Shiloh Baptist Church on Monroe Street at 8:15. The bus is going to be leaving at 8:15 a.m. on this Monday. We need you to get on the bus. It is going to go all the way to Greenbelt, Maryland, 6500 Cherrywood Lane. This is the closing arguments are going to happen on Monday, and this is the most important day. If you come and show your support, perhaps victory, perhaps an innocent person, a person who has worked hard for our community, will be vindicated. But if we don't stand up, injustice will continue to have its ugly root and head in Baltimore City. And the reason why we have so much injustice in our community right now is because too many of us are lackadaisical and are allowing wrong to happen. So I want to encourage you all to come out on Monday and be a part of it. We're going to end our time together because we know our dear sister Sheena Smith has to be at work, and she has a very important job. She is a hard worker. Let me tell you, she don't like the accolades, but they tell me that Sheena.
It's not that.
Listen, listen. Let me just say this. She provided lunches for the people who came out there. I almost got me a turkey sandwich on Friday. I was looking for that turkey sandwich, but this shows her heart. She's not getting paid to do any of this. She is doing this because she does not want to see wrong happening in our city. Sheena, I'm going to ask you to say the last word before we go.
The thing is this, is that we're going to pray with people who are afraid to come, because many are afraid. And if you cannot make it, you can pray wherever you are. Okay, but we're looking for individuals. From what I'm understanding, there was a young man, he says he's going to bring some people as well. So we're looking for a strong, supportive front for our sister, because she deserves our support. She loves the city. It wasn't just our community. There was a man on one day, I was in the courtroom, and he came down, he said, I'm looking for Marilyn Mosby. I said, you look, I had coughed, y'all. I had to go to the ladies' room because I didn't want to be coughing in the court. So I went out the hallway. He says, I am looking for Marilyn Mosby. I said, you looking for Marilyn? I said, are you here to support Marilyn? He said, yes. I said, well, 1 second. I said, we are in this courtroom 4C, and we're sitting on the left-hand side. So when y'all come in the courtroom, we want you on the left-hand side. And I walked him in that courtroom, and afterwards, he said, Miss Mosby, he says, I just come down here to support you because I want you to know that you made the right decisions on my trial. I had a case that you made the right decision on. And people would look at it, and he had a stack of paper this way, and he was showing how he had dealt with so much corruption and everything. And then when we got outside, the news media was trying to jump all over us. And then he told the news media, look at this style. I will tell you about this. Y'all, we learning a lot down there. We really are. And we're there in love to support our sister. And we do what we can, because it took me back to the days as Sister Sylvia Harris, I told you Ken Harris' mother, she said, Sheena, you remind me of those women when they were getting on that bus to fight for us. Because I know, we make a little food and everything, and then we sit in our cars and eat a little something. And it's because we had a little 1 hour lunch break, and then you got to go find something. Because this is overwhelming, seeing our sister go through this. So it's our moment of being able to invite God to come and be with us and keep us at peace, because we know that she's done nothing wrong. So we want to just have this peaceful spirit to encourage her. Continue to stay strong. We're with you, our sister, and we love her because she did what was the right thing to do. And the ancestors are pleased.
Yes.
They are pleased.
You know, I want everybody to say a word of prayer for Marilyn Mosby and her family. I want you to understand that this lady has been through so much. Her children has been through so much trauma. She has lost so much.
Yes.
And unless we show support, this could be you.
Yes,
This could be you.
It could be.
So we want to thank you for tuning in, and thank you for your support and how you have just been engaged. And we want to remind everybody that you can ride the bus to the courthouse. Simply go to New Shiloh Baptist Church this Monday. The bus will be leaving at 8:15 a.m. So maybe you can come a little bit earlier so that we'll have a good idea of how many people are getting on that bus. But we need you there. We need your support. Church folk, community, lawyers, doctors, no one is too old or young to come. What better opportunity would it be for you to model before your children what it looks like to stand up for the rights of those who have been mistreated? So thank you again for joining, and we look forward to look forward to your presence on Monday. So until next time, go
thank
ahead.
the brothers for getting the bus. I want to thank the brothers for getting the bus.
Yes.
Bill Gordon, Smitty, Lou Fields, all of those brothers got together to make sure that they had a bus.
And if you don't know who Bill Gooding is, a lot of the men that she's called are members of the Arch Social Club. And if you don't know anything about the Arch Social Club, it is the oldest social club for men in America. And Bill is a member of that, along with Shambe and some of the other men who were down there on Friday. And I'm a member of Arch Social Club as well. And so Arch Social Club is definitely standing proud and standing strong in support of Marilyn Mosby. And so until next time, we're going to see